Okay, welcome to the Sports Coffee, the weekly sports chat with today's guest. We've got Bruce Tarran from Newmarket Tennis Club. He's a very experienced level 5 tennis coach, been coaching over 30 years. I won't say exactly how many years, but I'm sure Bruce could let us know during the talk. So Bruce, how are you? Welcome.
I know. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem.
And I'm good.
Okay, so to start off, just a few sort of basic questions. You know, where did it all start for you, tennis, Bruce?
Was a long time ago. I started in the garden, I guess, with my parents on a lawn. My dad worked for the local brewery, and they had some courts, so I was lucky. I could play down at local courts, Strong's Brewery in Hampshire, and then a next door neighbor, a very old lady, used to take me out to her club. That was good. We had a teacher in our school who used to arrange stuff. So I remember the first year at school when I was 11, I played in the school tournament and I won it. And so then I got encouragement there. And then I had an old guy who used to take me everywhere to play tennis. He's just a good guy, really. So when I was about 13, he used to take me. And I think that's the thing, really. We've all got someone to thank, haven't we? You know, anyone who plays tennis or any sport to a standard, you've got people in your past that you can thank. And I think that's quite.
So why tennis, Bruce? Why not another sport?
Well, I played a lot of table tennis. I used to love football. I did all sports. I think you find most people who are at any standard at one sport, they are into all sports. So maybe they were in their school team at all sports, but they just chose the one. And I guess that I just chose tennis because that was the one I was best at, really.
Yeah, and I guess if you had the access to a court as well, which obviously probably would have helped that as well. You know, because
it's often at school, isn't it, what you're best at? So I used to love football, but I wasn't the best footballer, but I was the best tennis player in my year. So you just sort of, I guess it's that partly, isn't it?
Okay, so growing up, tennis idol. Who was your tennis idol? So once you got into tennis, who was the person that you wanted to, you know, be that player?
Yeah. Be that player, Nastasi's backhand. I like Nastasi's backhand. Oh God, he's a long time. Mark Cox, used to watch Mark Cox as a kid, and then he became a good friend. So that was a nice thing. I've got a lot of time for Mark. When I got a bit older, it was Bjorn Borg. I used to teach all my kids to look like Bjorn Borg, which probably wasn't a good idea. But, yeah.
Brilliant. So since the game's evolved, you've mentioned a couple of players from the past. So since the game's evolved, and what is there any players that you like to tell that, you know, the new players coming through now, you know, this is a player to watch, or, you know, you like the style of this current player? Is there a player that,
like a lot of old coaches, you tend to focus too much on it's like music, I guess. You focus on the music you liked when you were a teenager. So, you know, I still have a lot of time for those guys who I liked when I was 16. Although the kids have no idea who Pete Sampras is or whatever. Obviously nowadays, there's a new crop of players coming through, but even so, I mean, Federer would be the player. And as a one-hander, just a genius, really. And I mean, all the top guys. Djokovic, amazing player, two-handed backhand. Nadal is incredible, you know, ability to keep going and stay strong. So yeah, I mean, it's funny as a coach. I mean, most of the tennis I watched as a kid is still in my head, but obviously nowadays it's a more aggressive game. Players are up the court more, which is a big thing. They tend to control the center. Tennis now is controlling the center. You don't go up to the net quite as much. You move around the ball to attack your forehand. But someone like Murray with an amazing backhand, but he still moves inside. So yeah, I think as a coach you have to teach modern, but I mean, people always talk about modern tennis, and in a sense, tennis has the same basics as it always has.
No, definitely. You know, in all sports, I guess it evolves over time, and new things come into the different games. So, talking of that, how did you get into? Obviously, played a good level of tennis over your career. How did you get into the coaching side of it?
Well, I nearly didn't. I was playing. So when I was about 27, I was still playing quite seriously. I was a county player, and I used to think that if I started coaching, it would I'd lose my playing. And it's probably true, actually. You start focusing on your kids you're coaching. So when I was 28, I had a lot of national players, and I probably started I remember I had a Middlesex final singles, and usually I'd have been training for it, and I went to watch one of my pupils the day before, and I think that showed me that maybe I'd moved over. But basically I started coaching because it was the only thing I had a boring job, and tennis was the only thing I was good at, really good at, and I was quite shy. I thought I wouldn't be good at coaching, but I found that a tennis court was one place I felt really comfortable. And so, yeah, I started teaching tennis.
So how long is it? Because obviously you're a level 5 coach, and I'm guessing that is probably the top level qualification that the LTA are doing. So how long has it taken you to get to sort of the high performance level of coaching?
Well, it was very different when I started. I taught a national champion when I was still a level 1,
Wow.
which they wouldn't let you near people now. But I was a county player, so I started hitting with someone, and then her coach left, and I started coaching her, and she was national champion. So, and at that time, I wasn't. You just wouldn't have access now to that kind of player, but it worked well because I didn't know anything, but I was so hardworking and enthusiastic, and gave her confidence. So, and at that time I had a lot of players. So I think really qualification is I mean, qualification is probably less important than how good you are as a coach and your enthusiasm. But so yeah, no, I tried to do. When I started coaching, I thought I should be professional, and so I did all my qualifications as quick as I could. I pretty much got them through in as few years as you could, because I thought it was my job. And so yeah, I had to do upgrades, and every year I do courses to keep my accreditation. But yeah, I did an LTA. I did a level 5 upgrade about 7 years ago, because you got to keep up.
Sure. Yeah.
But no, I just thought I don't. I mean, people outside of coaching in life, they spend years getting their qualification, whether it's whatever it is. So I think if you're a coach, if you can, you should take all your qualifications.
No, definitely. And from that, Bruce, were you lucky enough to get any of those funded through the clubs you were working with, or did you have to finance them yourself? Or
not at all. That didn't really happen. I used to take kids around to tournaments. I'd go and watch, and there was no kind of funding then from anyone. Again, no, that was all right. It was what I was into. Yeah, I used to take kids away for the county, even individual pupils you take away, which again you wouldn't do now. But to be a performance coach, you have to give up so much time, and it's not financially worthwhile, but it's a big buzz. And people make those decisions, and I think sometimes if you just sit back, and I mean, now I don't do that as much. I still have good players, but not at that level. You know, you just got to give so much time. But I think you get a lot out of it, you know, so it's all good. But no funding from. It was a different time.
sure.
But I've always been very lucky. I've always owned a program in my clubs. It's a bit different now, but I've always been really lucky to have a program. So I mean, I'm not paid. I have had retainers, but I've not paid like a wage or anything. So however hard I work, I benefit from it. Sure. So it has advantages and disadvantages, really.
Definitely. So just talking on players, you touched on the levels of players. If you had a top tip for an up and coming player, what would that be in this day and age to try and make them to the best player they could possibly be?
And you got to work just so hard, but you have to try and enjoy it, and you just want to try and keep going. It's just people who keep going who do well. You just keep going and playing and competing, and you've got to try and enjoy it for yourself.
No, definitely. I think in life, isn't it? It's what you put in is what you get out of it. Really, like you say with your coaching, the more you coach, the more you benefit from making a living out of it. And it's the same with trying to make a level of playing as well. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Have you ever been anywhere near the Wimbledon platform? Did you ever get to that stage when you were playing yourself?
I probably as a player, I played something called Junior Wimbledon, and but that was just really junior nationals. So no, there's many levels in tennis. You've got club tennis, county tennis, regional tennis, national tennis. But I've done as an old person, as a senior, I've done better. I play a lot of world ITF tournaments. I got a world ranking, which was okay. But as a player, I was just a good county player, really. I've had better pupils. I've had a couple of pupils who played at junior events at Wimbledon. But,
so what's your favourite surface to play on yourself?
Playing on now is clay. I like playing in Europe and playing on real clay, which is why when my last club got artificial clay, which is about 80% the same, it was really good. And why in my new club at Newmarket, I was banging on about clay for so long, and we now have that there. But it's artificial carpet clay, but it's got 80% playing characteristics, and you can play on it in all weather. So yeah, clay. When I was a kid, it was grass. We used to play on grass, which was the best. Usually the courts had lots of bumps in, and you just rush up to net as quick as you could and try and make a volley bounce. But no, I was playing on grass. So my club as a kid, my big club was Winchester, and that was all real grass. I don't think I've got any left now, but I had about 18 grass courts when I was a kid.
Okay, that's brilliant. So I guess that the artificial clay is becoming more popular now due to the climates in this country, or is it still quite?
It was slightly expensive, and artificial grass, which goes through quicker. Slightly less advanced club players will like it. Makes their slice look good, and so artificial grass is still probably more than anything as a synthetic surface, but artificial clay is becoming so. Many counties it's laid. In my last county in Leicestershire, we laid it. We were the biggest club in the county, and then all the other clubs saw it and they started laying it. I would imagine now we've laid it here. The other clubs, when they come to visit and play, will start to do the same. And I was in Middlesex and in London. The London clubs are all started. The big clubs are all laying artificial clay. Yeah, it's slightly more expensive, and it needs a little bit of upkeep. But yeah, it's the way to go. It's just, and you've got to lay the right one. I think one of the clubs near us laid the wrong one, so people start, a bad version of it. And then people don't rate it. But as people see the good, the strong companies laying top quality artificial clay, then I think very quickly, it's the surface of the future.
Is there also a level that the artificial clay can play? So say tournaments wise, can you play all levels on artificial clay, or is it
very good? Yeah, well, the one we've got is called Grand Launus clay, and that's an ITF grade 1 speed surface. So yeah, you can play international tournaments on it at the highest level. Whereas a tarmac court, you can't play. So most clubs, the cheapest surface is tarmac, and you will never see an ITF. I don't think, but you don't play top quality tennis on tarmac, but or indeed artificial grass. But it's mostly on acrylic or clay or grass or different surfaces. But the one we've got at Newmarket Tennis Club, our new artificial clay Grand Lanel clays courts, yes, you could play at the highest level on those. So we're very lucky to have them.
No, definitely. Is that an ambition of yourselves to try and get some high standard tournaments at Newmarket?
Well, I mean, our first team, certainly, our ladies and our men's first teams are very strong. So there's a lot of good tennis played at the club. But yeah, well, I really wanted to get some ITF seniors tournaments at the club, and that would be a nice thing. It's quite expensive. You've got to get white badge referees, and it isn't straightforward. And obviously, at the moment with coronavirus, it's setting stuff back. But yes, we would very much like. See, look at that. My phone's just going. Which that's live television, isn't it? Sorry, I'll turn it off. But yeah, we would like to get some top tennis played at the club.
No, brilliant. That's great. So your ambitions for the club, because the club is, when you came 3 years ago.
It was 3 years ago when the whole COVID thing started. So in a sense, the club stopped then, didn't it? Not much has happened since then. Although we did get the clay laid. That was a good time to lay it, just at the start of the coronavirus thing. But yeah, it's about it's 3.5 years now. Time flies. Yeah,
definitely. So from since you came to now, what's your biggest achievement? Is it the clay surface?
So the memberships obviously increased a lot. I guess the artificial clay is a sort of finish of is a good thing, but we'll move on from there. But yeah, the club's just bubbling. I wouldn't talk about single achievement really. Hopefully the club has improved in a lot of ways.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so talking of yourself again, and what the most successful things in your tennis career. So as a player, what was your biggest achievement as a player? I know you said you're a county player. You've come across, obviously you said you got a ranking for seniors. So what would you say if you were saying it was the biggest?
I was just a county player, but if you play at a certain level, you do so many tournaments. I played county tennis. I did so many tournaments, and you win some tournaments and you lose some. You win some open tournaments and you lose a lot more. I played County Cup for Hampshire. I played juniors for Hampshire, seniors for. I mean, it's just a lifetime in tennis, really. So you win tournaments, you win. So you win things like London Park, so when the Middlesex closed. Now I play ITF seniors tournaments. So I got a world ranking. It was about 80, I think. But that, you've got to play the tournaments to do that. I don't know. I mean, there's so many levels in sport, isn't there? I just played a lot competitively, but there's so many people better. The great thing about sport is you still meet people I've competed with as a kid. I mean, my Facebook will be full of them, and you go to a coaching conference, you might see someone you played with when you were 15, 16. Tennis is a small world, and that's one of the great things about sport, I think. And we spend all our lives doing it. I got literally a box full of trophies, hundreds of trophies, but they're all in a box in the shed at the tennis club. And that's the way it is if you play sport, I think.
So what about the same question, Bruce, but as a coach? So what's been your most
Well, the best players, I had a couple of national champions. As I said, a couple of national champions girls. I had a few national players. No, a lot of national players. A few played for England, but no one. Well, I've had some. I've had ITF ranked adults as well, so juniors and adults. But again, no, I mean it's been okay. I probably produced more good juniors, more. The players I produced have probably been at higher ranking rating than me as a player. I mean, it's nice if they keep playing as well. So again, all these people I used to teach are also on my Facebook, and mostly they're still playing. And what is a success? I guess if you're a national champion at 12 and then you give up at 14, which does happen, then you're not really a success. Success is carrying on playing tennis for your life. It's interesting if you are a player and you work with players, you've got to, the satisfaction and the success has to be in the play, not in and the friendships you make and all of that. It's a game for life, tennis. So I guess that would be the success. If my players are still playing and enjoying it, and their kids are playing, then they're a success.
No, it's a fair comment, and I think, especially currently as well, I'm guessing everybody who plays any kind of sport is missing that sort of social side of it, not just the playing side, but the social, getting together and being able to hit a ball together, or just having a chat on the sideline, or sitting in the clubhouse, or all of those things that go with just being a member of a sports club. It's a frustrating time, which obviously nobody's ever come across really before. So touching on that, how have you and the club coped? I know you said you've put the clay surface down during lockdown, but how have you guys coped during this sort of unseen times, really?
The club's a sad place because it's empty and you can't socialize. The bars closed. People and the kids. It's really hard on the kids. Competitively, kids have missed a year of competition, and just as they've missed a year of school. So financially, the club hasn't suffered. There's a lot of rate rebates and a lot of money, and the LTA will have refunded some money. There's lots of questions. I mean, obviously, the members have lost time they paid, and we've got to think about how to deal with that. As the club is trying to do stuff. We've got money. We're going to put floodlights out. There's a thing. We're going to put new LED floodlights up. There's a few things. We've got a committee meeting on Thursday, actually. But any club is more about the members. I guess it's the members who've suffered. The club will survive, and hopefully it will be there stronger when people come back. I really hope so. It's a great club, and it's doing particularly well now. We want to expand the teams and expand the club. But yeah, I think the tough times is for the members who can't play. You just said socially, one of the nice things at the club, there's these more elderly people come 3 times a week. They meet in the week and they have social tennis. Yeah. And these are people in their 60s and 70s, even 80s. And that was their social life, and that isn't there, hasn't been there for a year. And they don't, even when they could play outdoors, it wasn't great, when the weather got bad. But mostly they haven't been able to play. So that's a lot of elderly people whose social life for a year has been ended. And that's not a good thing, is it? And then, yes, you've got the kids, the juniors who are missing out, a year's improvement lost, although they'll catch up. Yeah. I think tennis clubs will survive the lockdown. We'll have to financially deal with things, but I think it's more about the human human effect that it will
So
have.
there's been a lot of talk, isn't it? Obviously, people's mental health and you know, not being able to, like we've mentioned, not being able to socialise during this time, especially if you're in a certain age band. Obviously, children possibly got more, you know, have had more interaction because they've been a lot of children have been allowed to stay at school or been at least communicating across different platforms similar to ourselves today, where, you know, I've got a grandparent who's 90 and she's been isolating since March, really, and not been out. She had her vaccination last week, but other than that, she's not really been out for virtually a year, which must be, you know, so hard just to deal with day-to-day basic getting through the day, really, I would imagine, unless, you know, you can't really have people in and out. So, you know, the members, like you mentioned that, you know, relied on that weekly schedule of coming to the club for 2-3 times a week. It must be so hard for them to deal with, you know, not having family or not having people in their bubble to come and see them as well. So let's hope, fingers crossed, that now the vaccine's out and we can try and get sport back into people's lives and make people, you know, back to their weekly routines and the time they enjoy spending time at their clubs and different venues.
Absolutely. We'll get through it, and things will return to normal, I'm sure. But yeah, no, it's a hard thing. I mean, some of the kids, when they came back after the first lockdown, were very shy. They'd lost a little bit. I mean, not all, but there were some children there who were crying to come back on court in a group. You know, they weren't used to a group, so it has cost with children as well. Not every child's the same, but some children will be affected and were by not having the social interaction. But yeah, I mean, it's sad, isn't it? At the end of your life, you haven't got much time left, and you've got to spend the whole year without any social life. It's tough, but yeah, we'll have to get through it.
No,
I mean, I haven't played. It's not a big thing, but I haven't played a tournament for a year. My last tournament was in Belarus, and I think that was in February or March last year. So, you know, that's an important part of my life, and it looks like there might be another year. And I haven't got so many years left of playing tennis. So yeah, I mean, that's a very small thing, but everyone is affected by this.
Oh, definitely. So touching on something slightly different, but still tennis related. You're probably one of the only coaches that I know that is also an author. So how did that come about, Bruce?
Well, I've got a real interest in tennis, I suppose, and tennis history. When I was younger, I used to, in London, I was pretty much most of my life in London. I'd go into central London and Cecil Court, I think, where they have all the old bookshops, and I used to go in and look for old tennis books. And I got into, and I used to tell stories. So I'd read a story about someone like Mandlikova when she was a kid. She had no money. Her dad used to make her, they had no tennis rackets. They used to practice in the winter without a tennis racket. And her dad made her a wooden racket and cut his hand. And there was blood on the wooden racket as she played as a kid. And I'd find these stories in these books and tell my kids before the county squad. They used to groan when I had a story to tell them. So I got into tennis books and then the tennis history. And that used to sort of fascinate me, or you know, the start of tennis. And then I went to work here. I had a nice job at Leicestershire, which is a big club in Leicester, and it had a great history. It had been there. It started in 1 year after Wimbledon started in 1878, I think the club started. So I should know that. And they had a local guy called George Hillyard, and his name came up in old books. And he had a court, he had a house where everyone used to go and play. All the world champions used to go and play on his court. And I found out where the house was, and a friend went and knocked on the door, and then I went out there, and it's too long a story, but there had been this guy had turned up with all these old pictures at the house about 30 years ago. No one had known anything about it. All these pictures of all these world champions, like be on board playing in your back garden constantly. And so I investigated it, and I wrote a book about this guy, George Hillyard, who at the time was more famous than anyone. You know, he moved Wimbledon, the new Wimbledon, he built that, or he got that going, and he played for Britain. He was good, he was just good at everything, and he was a huge character. It was because of him the king, the royal family got involved. He was a friend of the king. He'd been on a shipmate with him. It was just an amazing character who's completely forgotten. So I wrote a book about him. So that was why I was just into it. But it consumed me for about a year, going to Wimbledon Library and everything. Yeah, so that was why.
Really good. You know, I'm sure a lot of people have always thought, oh, I'd love to write a book, but never actually, you know, got round to doing it. So it's a really good thing to be able to say that you've done and ticked off, I guess. Couple of last things really, Bruce. We mentioned about the club. So anybody in the local sort of Newmarket area who after lockdown would be interested in picking up a racket at any kind of level, how do they go about finding you and finding out about the club? What's the best way of doing that?
It's very welcoming. It really is. It's a very friendly club. Everyone is so friendly now, and you'll get a welcome whatever your level is. So you can Google a club, Newmarket Tennis Club, Google it. That'll go to the website. That'll tell you everything. You can Google me, Bruce Tarran, and that will go to probably my website or the Newmarket one. And just, I mean, you can just come along, but you probably want to come along at the right time for you and your standards. So probably best to Google Newmarket Tennis Club and email the membership secretary, who is great, or you can email me and I'll let you know. So, or phone me. Any, you're just so welcome. We're looking always welcoming new people. Our membership has pretty much doubled, even tripled. So there's a lot of people there in your boat who are just getting back into tennis or whatever.
Yeah, and hopefully, obviously, after lockdown, there'll be more people thinking, oh, well, you know, get back into something that they maybe, like you say, have done previously, or something that actually I haven't done that before. The facilities are lovely. Let's, you know, it's on my doorstep. Let's you know, give it a go. So hopefully,
they are lovely, and usually we've got indoor courts. I mean, we've got these new clays, unbelievable facilities, and yes, you'd be most welcome. The fact is, actually, after the first lockdown, we had a big boost of people coming because, and I'm sure it'll happen again. People, I mean, walking's okay, and I'm going for a lot of walks now, but doesn't quite compare with playing tennis.
no.
And tennis is such a great game, so I do recommend people to come along and give it a go.
No, definitely. So just to wrap up, Bruce, I really appreciate your time. It's been a really interesting talk, and to catch up on sort of your career in your tennis, you know, both as a player and as a, you know, a coach. So appreciate your time, and hope you can get back on the court coaching and playing sooner rather than later. So that was Bruce. Like I say, you can Google Bruce on the internet and put in Newmarket Tennis Club or Newmarket LTA Tennis Club or Bruce Tarran, and you'll find out the details and get hold of, you know, Bruce. So appreciate
Thank you, Neil.
Okay,
thank you for asking me, Neil.
No problem.
It's a pleasure.
No, it's been a pleasure to listen to. Thank you.